Okay, hello. Assalamualaikum everyone. So we will be starting the forum now. So I hope that you are all ready and we can begin in 10 seconds. Okay. All right. Okay, hello and assalamualaikum. Good morning everyone. I hope everyone is in good health. So I feel extremely privileged and honored to which is titled Home Automation and IoT, which is the Internet of Things. So I am Nurul Nabila, a postgraduate student from University Technology Mara, UITM, acting as your MC today. This program is entitled Home Automation and IoT Forum, and it is being organized by the IEEE student branch of University International in collaboration with IEEE UCSI. People from all walks of life, from more than 70 affiliation out of their common interest on the topic of Internet of Things. Generally, Internet of Things home automation refers to the capacity to use the internet connection equipment to operate household appliances. It might include pre-programming complicated heating and lighting systems, as well as alarms and home security controls, all of which are connected via a central hub and operated remotely via a smartphone app. So the study predicts that there will be around 50 billion Internet of Things and devices connected by 2030, with a potential economic impact of 11.1 trillion. While the future OT is limitless, what are the concerns from the public towards its security, reliability, and the impact on the job market? So to start our IoT forum this morning, a gentle advice to all of participants: please make sure that you are muted at all times. If questions and topics discussed, please note them down in the chat box and our speakers answer them at once at the Q&A session near the end. We are honored to have invited the renowned lecturers from each university to become our speakers. They will be sharing some insights from their expertise in the field of wireless communication, smart home IoT, and machine learning. Without further ado, let's welcome our speakers. Our first speaker is Assistant Professor Dr. Mastaneh Mokayev from UCSI Chartered Engineer. She has received her doctorate from Wireless Communication Center Faculty of Electrical Engineering in University Technology Malaysia. Our next speaker will be Associate Professor Dr. Tinagaran Perumal from University Putra Malaysia. Dr. Tinagaran is the recipient of 2014 Early Career Award from IEEE Consumer Electronics Society for his pioneering contribution in the field of consumer electronics. He completed his PhD at University Putra Malaysia in the area of smart technology and robotics. Joining us next will be Dr. Tan Wei Hao from Multimedia University. He received his master's in electronics from Queen's University of Belfast, UK, and a PhD in engineering from Multimedia University. He has participated in various government and private funded projects since he started his career with the university. So today's forum will be moderated by Dr. Fu Yi Lu from Multimedia University. He received his doctorate from Tokyo Institute of Technology, specializing in 2016 areas of cognitive radio networks and TV white space. I know for a fact that we are about to learn a lot from the IoT from the following exchange, and this knowledge will greatly benefit us. I will pass the floor to Dr. Fu to begin our forum. The floor is yours, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Nurul. I hope everyone can hear me. A very good morning to every one of you. It's an honor to be here today. Thank you very much for your invitations. And it's great to see that there are a lot of participants. It's almost 100 of you who are very eager to learn about this IoT and Yeah, it's our honor to have Dr. Mastane from UCSI, Dr. Tina Garan from UPM, and also Dr. Tan from MMU. So it's my privilege to moderate your session today. So, okay, let's kickstart our session today by asking all the speakers some burning questions. I'm not sure whether the questions are burning the students, but the questions are burning me. So I feel very hot now. So let's start with some IoT examples. Maybe we would like to hear about, we have heard about this IoT a lot. So are there any good examples of IoT usage that can really improve the quality of life or productivity? So I may direct this question to Dr. Mastane from UCSI. Dr. Mas, what do you think about, do you have any good examples of the IoT usage that really can improve our quality of life?
Yes, good morning. And first of all, let me just thank you all for giving me this chance to participate today in this forum. Yes, in fact, if you don't mind, I just start with a very basic information about IoT. Let's see what is IoT means and what is it exactly, and then I will just give you some good examples if you don't mind. In fact, IoT or Internet of Things is nothing but the connectivity of all devices around us. Till now, or till very recent days, what we did is that we used the internet in order to make a communication between people. For example, I just used the internet in order to send email to you. You use the internet to make the video conference or something like that. It was the most we used it till recent. But nowadays, we are using internet in order to get the help or enable the devices to communicate to each other itself. So without the help of the human, they are able just to communicate to each other. They can talk to each other in another word in a very basic way, if I want to say. If this happens, or as what we see right now, that it is happening actually, we call this process or this event as the IoT or Internet of Things, in which all the things around us are able to communicate to each other. Most of the things that we have actually, not maybe not all, but almost everything. So the very good examples of them can be found almost everywhere today. Most of us are using our wearable devices like the smartwatches that we have. It can capture lots of information from our health, fitness and everything, and it can process later on. We can use it for other purposes as we need. The other good example I can provide you, which can be seen today in most of our lives, is the smart homes. For example, if I want to come back home, instead of wasting the energy and let's say turning the lights on, I can make them just before I just arrive home. I can use the internet. I use my phone and switch on all the necessary things that I need in order to save the energy, to save my time actually, and I can get lots of benefits. Rather than this, going to the larger scale, I can give you example of the smart trafficking. So, I mean, the traffic light, so the traffics became smart and the roads became smart. You can see lots of sensors have been used throughout the road, and it will collect lots of data in order to smoother down the let's say the traffics that we have. Based on that, we can have these smart cities in which lots of data can be captured. The crimes will go lower down and the traffic will be so smoother, and lots of benefits in this way that we can see today can be considered as the good examples that affected our lives today.
Well, thanks a lot, Dr. Mas. Examples on the home automations and also road traffic. On the other hand, what do you think, Dr. Tina? Do you have any examples to add on?
Right. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Fu. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I think the theme about embedding home automation and IoT, it's a very popular use case. I mean, whenever you see a white paper, whenever you open a textbook, I think the first thing that you see is about IoT in the smart homes or home automation. But in the reality is that any use cases that we see probably in Malaysia or Southeast Asia countries, that would be a very small segment of IoT and home automations. Particularly, this is because the context is a local culture, and you might not see the huge acceptance of home automations compared to countries like Japan and US. But maybe in the Southeast Asia, it would be a smaller segment. But nevertheless, it is very important because we see a lot of pioneering projects or even a pioneering deployment actually starts from home automation. So how does home automation in IoT starts is actually based on the usage of sensors and actuators that actually connects to your appliances, and there should be some sort of intelligence that actually controls those appliances. So initially, the domain of home automation started as hobbyists, but now we see that many housing developers are making it as a package for the users. So that is a good trend if you look at in Malaysia. But the notion is that any home automation with IoT, there should be some degree of intelligence infused, right? By just connecting those appliances, we wouldn't have those decision-making ability. So this is what we expect, that maybe some examples like controlling your ventilations like aircon, controlling your infotainment devices, set-top boxes at home, and probably even your auto gates at home. Okay, that could be a good example to get started with. So any students or any beginners, right, who wants to get into IoT, home automation would be the best thing to look for.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tina. Talking about intelligence, yeah, I think that's right. Whether you are talking about home automations or IoT, there should be some form of intelligence embedded. So, what do you think, Dr. Tan? Do you have any other examples to add on?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Fu. And also thank you very much to IEEE for inviting me as one of the speakers. So of course, like what Dr. Tina Garan has said, IoT has a lot of application. And for students, of course, the best starting point will be starting from home automation. But actually, IoT also has been used in many other places. For example, in industry. Okay, so now actually a big chunk of this in IoT is being used in industry, and IoT is one of the enabling technologies for Industrial Revolution 4. Okay, the fourth Industrial Revolution. For example, IoT has been used mainly for preventive maintenance, for example. Okay, so this is one of the very popular use cases in industry, whereby AI is also used in this case, using IoT to collect the data, okay, from the sensors installed on the machine. So AI, okay, in this case, machine learning, can be machine learning or deep learning, can be used to analyze the data and then train a model, okay, train the models to predict whether the machine is about to fail. So this can allow the production to run without much interference, because otherwise, if this is not possible to monitor the machine using AI, what happens is that if the machine breaks down, then there'll be a lot of downtime for the production, and there'll be some loss for the manufacturers and so on. Okay. Another very popular usage of IoT now is in the case of location tracking. Okay, so we know that for outdoor we have GPS, but for indoor GPS, of course, the satellite signal will be quite weak. So indoor location is also a very popular area that has been combined with IoT. Okay, we call this location-based IoT. So in this case, it allows us to track the location of objects as well as people indoor. For example, I think a lot of us have already experienced it. It's like in a big shopping mall, you can use apps provided by the shopping mall to track your location, to check the location of the shop, and it can tell you how to go to that particular shop, right? This is also used in industry to track their asset as well as their inventories and so on. Okay, and also at home, we can also use this indoor location to track the whereabouts of the person. For example, whether this person is currently in the kitchen, in the bedroom, and so on. So why are we using this? Is this can be used to help to track the whereabouts of the elderly who stay at home alone. Okay, So this can actually allow us to remotely monitor, the well-being of the elderly at home. Okay, so these are some of the use cases. Maybe later on, I think, we will discuss more about these other use cases. Okay, that's all from me for now. Thank you very much, Dr. Fu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tan. I think the take-home message is that, there should be some form of intelligence embedded in the IoT system, and it's a good point to start from home automations, where we see the IoT application. But IoT applications are not only limited to home automations, as Dr. Tan has pointed out. It has actually moved to the industries. For example, the Industrial Revolution 4.0. So in this regard, may I ask Dr. Tina's opinion on, could you give some real problems that the IoT can solve exclusively?
Okay. There are many problems that IoT can solve exclusively. It can be a smaller or bigger problem, but the focus of IoT is mainly on the digitizations, right? On how those digitizations can be applied to the decision-making process. So one common example that we can see is like, you see like healthcare companies or even consumer end devices that actually uses wearables to streamline the vital signs, vital data, like Fitbits, and you see some of the fitness trackers. So this could be a very common thing that we see around. But apart from that, to be more specific, you can see some of the tech companies or even oil and gas industries that actually uses IoT for their asset tracking and monitoring. And these are some of the what we call as hardcore areas where the use of technologies really matters. And for example, like remote data that you need to have like probably like scaling kind of predictions from in different phases, and this is where we can see IoT plays their role very well. And one more thing is that I think to see some of the exclusive IoT solutions, it's very broad in horizon. But what we could see that if we intend to digitize an ecosystems, could be a home, could be a city, or could be in a structural building, there must be a clear guideline or objectives on how do you want to streamline that digitization process. And this is where IoT can actually transform the ecosystem into a digitization process. And we could see a unified being streamlined from those sensors and up to the users, how they can actually manipulate, extrapolate those data for their own objectives.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tina. What do you think, Dr. Mas, about the real problems that the IoT can solve?
Well, first of all, I do agree with Dr. Tina. It is totally correct. If I give you one specific example, it can be distance healthcare. The effect of the IoT in the healthcare sector, I can see that it is quite big impact. And previously, if I want to give you examples, let's say previously, if we need to have some sort of surgery or to meet some specific doctors, maybe we had the limited resources. Let's say, looking at this example, that let's say we have a very good specific surgeon in some part of the world, and we are far from him or her, and we cannot have the simply access to him. So the problems that we encountered would be so many, much wide problems we would be encountered with. For example, traveling issue, cost, and time, all those may affect our lives. But today, with the help of IoT, we can expect to have the distance surgery can be done with the doctors. So in the health sector, I can see that the impact of the IoT is quite big. Not only this, even within our today's life during the pandemic, we could simply, experience what is the effect of IoT in our lives. Let's say a very good example in Malaysia using the My Sejahtera app. So wherever we went, and everything can be all the data can be collected. So if anybody is detected positive, so others can isolate themselves, and the health issue is improved dramatically at this point. However, the infrastructure was not prepared before, but I can say Malaysia did a good thing in order to prepare all this. So by time the technology is improving, the standards improving, and also the infrastructures are just created well, so established well, we can expect to have much more impact of IoT under the umbrella of 5G for sure in the healthcare sector. And this, on the other side, will affect today's goal, which is the applying the SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals in different types of our lives, in different areas of life. For example, the SDG for the education, for the healthcare, all those can be affected by this implementation of IoT. If you notice in our pandemic situation, one of the sectors that was dramatically got affected was the education sector. And most of us are, actually all of us are from the education sector, so it is important to consider that as well. There are so many people or so many places in the world that they cannot have the access to internet. They may not have good infrastructure. So people lost their education just because of the pandemic happened. So for example, one of the examples that I can give you, myself and my team just proposed one educational drone that it is exactly based on the IoT. So with the help of the internet connection, we can provide some connection for our student in the some specific area that they don't have enough facilities, so in order to continue their education. Also, we saw that during this pandemic, we got lots of help from the far distance learning and the communication wise between the students and the lecturers in a real time. So all those, I believe, without the presence of 5G and the IoT, it is quite far to achieve. So the impact is quite clear on these sectors as well, and I hope it will be continued even more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mas. What do you think, Dr. Tan?
Yeah, thank you very much for the good sharing from both Dr. Mas and also Dr. Tinagaran. Yeah, I agree that IoT, one of the very good usage area will be for healthcare and of course for education. I believe that IoT is very suitable if we want to break the barrier of distance. Okay, it's like if you combine IoT and AI, you see that AI for human. Okay, if we take human as a analogy, right, compared to a human, AI is our brain. Okay, so IoT, because with the sensor connection to the sensor, is like our 5 senses. Okay, so with IoT is we break the barrier, so the brain can be anywhere in the world. Okay, and then the sensors can also be placed in a totally different location. So this allows us to remotely monitor, remotely control, okay, and also remotely to manage a lot of things that we cannot do previously. Okay, so with these IoT technologies, right? Of course, the usage is really very vast, I would say, in many areas. Okay, so yeah, I believe we will discuss more about this as well in later part. So yeah, maybe we talk about this more usage later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tan, Dr. Mas, and Dr. Tina. So I think the take-home message is that, as Dr. Tina pointed out, the automation process it may need to be streamlined and it requires some guidelines. So I think we can talk more about this later. And there are various examples that the 3 speakers have pointed out. Could be a remote surgery, our My Shelter applications, remote educations, and so on. And I think it touched 2 other big topics. One is a 5G network, and the other one is the AI. Right. So I don't know, maybe in future we have another similar forum on 5G and the AI. And on the other hand, we also talk about the UN SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals, which are very important. I think the humankind should work towards achieving these sustainable goals. So I think it's important, and hopefully IoT can be tools to allow us to reach that goal. So we have heard examples of IoT and these good usages of IoT and the problems that the IoT can solve. But now I'm going to ask the questions of, do the benefits of implementing IoT in our life really outweigh the cost of the IoT equipment, the power consumptions, and also the maintenance of all these IoT devices? So do the benefits really, more the pros and cons are we think are the pros more than the cons now, the benefit of implementing this IoT? So I would like to direct this question to Dr. Tan. Dr. Tan, what do you think?
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a very interesting question, right? We know that if you want to deploy IoT systems, you involve additional equipment, okay, devices, and also in order to, you need to power those devices, right? So there will be power consumption as well, and also we need to maintain them, okay? So there will be cost incurred in this process, right? Not only the cost for the device, but the cost for the power, electricity, and also the cost for maintenance. But to actually discuss how these benefits of having IoT can it outweigh this cost, we need to understand what are the benefits first. So in order to understand the benefit, let us just look at what can this IoT be used, okay, in our life and also in our work to help us to increase our productivity, make our life easier. Okay, so first of all, we can look at the usage of IoT in different areas. For example, firstly, IoT in industry. Okay, so just now earlier I talked about preventive maintenance, right? So one of the usage of this IoT in industry is preventive maintenance, whereby we can predict, okay, whether the machine is going to require any maintenance before it actually break down. Okay, so this can reduce the downtime for production. Another very interesting usage of IoT is digital twins. So with digital twins actually is enabled through IoT, because we need to collect all those sensory data from the machines. Okay, and with digital twins, we have a virtual representation of these machine or systems. Okay, and we can monitor them remotely, digitally. So we can look at their status, we can view their real-time data, and then we can use this for simulation, okay, and even to create model to help us in decision making, okay, on what we should do next to improve the production and so on, right? So these are some of the usage of IoT industry. You can see that it can really help in increase the productivity, increase the production, okay. And other than that, using location-based IoT system, we can also use them to help us to pinpoint the inventory. Where are our inventories? Where are the raw materials stored? And also for asset tracking. Okay, so these all can actually help in industry to improve the the production from the industry. Secondly, is of course for home automation. IoT has been used quite widespread in home automation, for home automation. So for example, we can use it to control or automate the lighting, the heating, the ventilation, and even for security at home, right? So you can see, especially for security, so this can really ensure our safety and can actually help us in case of any emergency. So this is actually help in saving life in some cases, right? So it is actually, you can see that it's very beneficial, right, to have this IoT at home because of security. Next is for environmental monitoring. So we can deploy IoT system to help us to monitor the air quality, water quality, soil, wind speed, and even to detect seismic wave, okay, to predict whether there is any earthquake, right? So this can provide early warning for natural disaster. And again, this helps to save life as well, okay? Next is, of course, in medical and healthcare. We can deploy IoT system for remote health monitoring and also for emergency notification system, which is quite important, especially for some aging country, right? For example, like aging country, Japan and so on, because a lot of the elderly, they are staying at home alone, okay? Staying at home alone. So using this IoT, what happened is that we can monitor the well-being of this elderly at home, okay, through the data that have been collected through the sensors. Maybe the elderly, they are wearing some wearables, so we can actually monitor their action. What are they doing currently and where are they in the house, right? So from there, we can actually know, what happened to this elderly. Is this elderly is not actually actively moving, and what happened to him? Maybe him or her is actually lying in the bathroom or maybe lying in the kitchen. It actually can trigger an alert because we are not supposed to lie down in the kitchen, right? So this can actually trigger an early alert, okay, to actually send help to the elderly, right? So then we also can use IoT to help us in energy management, to optimize energy consumption, and also to help in balanced power generation, okay? So this can help in conserving energy and also to help to reduce, to better manage the energy or power generation. And then in agriculture, IoT can help in precision farming, okay, whereby we can apply those fertilizer and pesticide more precisely, and we can also manage the irrigation system, intelligently. So this is also help to conserve the very precious water supply, right? And also in transportation as well, IoT can be used for example, in smart traffic control, smart parking, fleet management, safety, and as well as road assistance. So all these can again provide safety to us, save our time in traveling and so on. So looking at all these benefit of IoT in different areas, you can see that especially, okay, IoT can really help to save life, save time, save energy, and as well as save natural resources. Okay, so from my point of view, it really this benefit really outweighs the cost. Okay, the cost of this maintaining or cost of getting the equipment and also cost of powering the devices. Okay, so I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Wow, there's certainly a lot of benefits here. Maybe we can hear from Dr. Tina. Dr. Tina, do you have anything else to add on this?
Right. Okay. I think like Dr. Tan pointed, we can see there are many horizontal and verticals in IoT, starting from the smart use cases, from the smart home, smart cities, and then growing towards industrial internet, IoT, where you see some predictive maintenance and all that. But I think despite like countries like in Malaysia and probably our neighbors in Singapore and Thailand, and most of the Southeast Asia, I think we are very much rich in natural resources. So there could be some possibilities of students or probably startups to explore some important use cases on sustainable developments, just like Dr. Tan pointed just now, SDG goals, right? So instead of just focusing on urban-centric use cases, I think it's high time for us to focus on farming or probably crops monitoring, something that contribute to food security and so on. So this could be a very good, I would say, a problem statement for the students or even for beginner researchers to explore IoT. And this is where we can see the IoT can make a quick leap and something that we can outweigh, especially the benefits for us in Malaysia. That's all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tina. I'm afraid that we are a bit behind the schedule, so I'm going to move on to the next questions. I think everyone has heard a lot of these benefits, like Dr. Tan and Dr. Tina has pointed out, preventive maintenance, digital twin, and then the inventory or even human tracking, locationing. All right. So we heard all these benefits, but what about the errors? Because IoT is basically just a machine, is a system. So system generates error. So whatever systems that you use, there are bound to be some errors. And these errors in the IoT, what will be the effects of this error, and how will it be impact our life, and how can we overcome it? Maybe I direct this question to Dr. Mas.
Sure. Well, actually, like any other communication things or systems, I can say that we always expect in any kind of communication, we expect to have interference, we expect to have attenuation, we expect to have several factors that it will affect our data, our signal, or anything around us. So the same thing we expect from the IoT, but I can say it in this way, that maybe in IoT, the problem is even bigger in a sense that we are encountering with so many devices around us. So one of the big issues that we may face is the security. So this security issue may cause lots of problems for us because our personal data may be shared with some unauthorized people that will later on cause lots of, disaster situation for us. For example, if this lead to have some information about our bank accounts or something, so we will lose lots of money or so many bad impact on our society in general. This is one thing. The other thing is that due to the poor design of the devices that we are using. If I want to clarify this part, I can give you an example. Previously, we just use our laptop or computer, or at most our smartphone to communicate. We do all these kind of internet connection. We had all these before, and we didn't encounter so big problems. Why? Because we could use so many antivirus. We could use upgrading the system every time we upgrade the the Windows, everything. So to some extent, we could protect ourselves. But having a very large scale of devices around us, and some of them are so poor designed in a way that they are not upgradable, so we cannot have the 100% control on their security. So the other side of these errors may happen due to the high demand of people. Once the user number is increasing and increasing, so the control on that part also may be another problem. But what are the things that we can do to avoid? Maybe we can train some students or some people, some engineers, in order to have a good design. We can consider the link budget calculation in a proper way in order to avoid any mistakes later on. We can consider all these, like anti-tamper sort of features that we can use for our devices. Also, I believe personally on something that I don't know if it is applicable or not, but personally, I believe in the customer power. Customer power in a sense that if we know that some device is not reliable, it is not liable, it is not following some SOPs, some standards, or it is lagging of some, standards that it should have. So we avoid to buy that. By stop buying or supporting that sort of companies, we can show our power. Once the demand goes lower, so the company will change his mindset. So we have to change our mindset in order to change the company's mindset in order to produce some good design or reliable design products. These are the things that I think we can work in our side. However, there are another things that can be discussed from not our point of view, but from another side like IT or IEEE. They can consider all those and all those problems and consider them in their standards that they already do. So some protocols and standards can be added to the security parts, and we are going to have the better life in this way, because having the hackers around us everywhere, it is so easy for them to access to any of our devices, let's say, especially in the home automation, as long as we are using the poorly designed device. Now, by hacking our device, they can simply use the Wi-Fi connection, and from your side, you can just simply send the information, let's say emails to here and there, then just fake information and just hack everybody and cause lots of problems to the society at the end of the day. So these are my concerns, but I'm not so sure if everybody's agree on this part, especially the point of the customer side. But this is what I believe, that in case we change our mindset, we can change the society mindset as well, and we can force those people in power to do the right things and produce something which is more reliable, and you know, it would have a good effect or impact on the society at the end of the day. Thank you. This is my own point of view, actually.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mas. Dr. Tina, do you have anything to add on this topic, on the errors generated from the IoT system?
Okay. Yeah, as pointed by Dr. Mastani, I think no doubt that we could face that, and actually it's a never-ending problem. You know, when you talk about security and privacy for devices. But of course, there could be some improvisations from time to time, and that shouldn't limit our creativity when you want to try out some new innovations in IoT. So security has never been a hindrance, but it's just that whenever we have a product or probably a project on IoT, I think there should be a requirement to take care of the security and privacy, right? Because looking at end user products like fitness trackers, you know, like they normally have their own terms and conditions that the users agree to use before they know about the risk and what would be the consequences. So likewise, looking at errors, and there are many ways to actually minimize and to overcome those errors today compared to what we have last 15 years. I think taking the cue from what Dr. Mastani says, that it's fine to have a guideline or probably some standards, or that could be, you know, incorporated whenever there is a project on IoT. I think we can discuss more about the standards later on.
What do you think, Dr. Tan?
Yes, I agree with Dr. Mas and Dr. Dinagaran. I think security is, of course, one of the main concerns in IoT as well. And it already happened previously that there are hackers who use these IoT devices to launch DDoS attack on many servers around the world. For the errors by IoT devices, I think one of the things that the developers and also manufacturers can do is to do very thorough testing and validation of their system and devices, okay, before they actually launch it. Okay, because a lot of time they need to rush the product to the market, so they did not actually carry out very thorough test and validation of their system as well as devices. They may be only testing on a very limited environment, okay, and didn't actually consider all possible cases, okay. And I think this kind of errors, when it happen, is sometimes it can be actually overcome by using upgrading of firmware or patches. But sometimes, like what Dr. Mas has highlighted just now, is some IoT devices cannot be upgraded. Okay, so that may be the problem also. Okay, of course, to ensure that you know, to minimize this kind of problems is like what Dr. Mas and Dr. Dinagaran has said, is to actually enforce it through a standard. Okay, through a standard. Right. So yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all the three speakers. I think the take-home message is that, well, as long as we have any form of a system, there's bound to be some error. So I think security threat is one of the, you know, the main concern, not only in IoT but also in other system. But I think the main trouble with the IoT is that there's so many out there, and all these are actually low-level devices that doesn't allow too many configurations, and you know, you can't install an antivirus there. So that is a problem. So the speakers mentioned about need to have some sort of anti-tampering functions. So well, in communication, this is a error corrections or error detection concept, that you need to be able to detect when error happen, and if possible to correct the error. So I think that's important. All right. So of course we need engineers like you to fix it. And also there's a concept of customer power. right? If you find that the devices, can easily be compromised, then don't buy them. So that it needs some form of awareness to be induced in the general public. That's how I see it. So we have heard a lot of these examples and benefits. So now let's talk about business. Let's talk about business, as some of the participants has posed asking what is the best home automation companies. So let's talk about business. So I would like to ask Dr. Tina, how will this IoT transform the businesses in the future? Dr. Tina?
Okay, thank you. As we see that, when you look at the growth of IoT technologies compared to big data or even AI or machine learning, it was rather gradual. And unlike the boom of big data or AI, the more recognition is being exposed to AI and big data compared to IoT. Right? So there are reasons why, because businesses mostly they are looking at the cost and investment, right? So if I can point out, probably a factory that's been running for 30 years with their legacy systems. Okay, they have their typical control panels, which is button and without IoT, right? So it's been running perfectly, and probably there might not be a necessity for them to upgrade or transform their existing operations to IoT. Because looking at the investment, the cost, probably the factories or the companies might think that it could be redundant to transmigrate to IoT, right? But somehow things are changing gradually, where more and more businesses and companies are seeing that to have some sort of interoperations or interoperability between the legacy systems and the new IoT systems, particularly because of many factors, where the need for having their own data. So like previously, Dr. Tan pointed about the predictive maintenance or preventative maintenance, right? So many plants, manufacturing companies are now looking at this predictive analytics as meant for their future predictions, all right? And it could actually help them to plan out their production line. So what we can expect in coming years, that many companies, right, could actually form a new business lines. And this particularly could work in home automation and smart homes. But what we see in Malaysia is that the home automation segment is quite small, but there are a lot of interest in buildings, smart buildings, where we see that building owners or facility managers wants to have their own IoT devices and IoT control to minimize the energy consumptions. So it depends on the objectives on how they want to use those IoT. So these businesses are looking at that kind of possibilities, for example, energy consumptions, reductions, right, to interoperate their CCTV together with their energy modules and so on. So we do expect that more business lines will be formed. For example, in agriculture, right, probably you have a startup, probably a group of students wants to begin a startup in farming equipment, for example. So when they look at farming equipment, probably they can venture into self-driving tractors with IoT enabled, or maybe intelligent farming solutions, or probably having some sort of sensors and actuators that can monitor their crop levels simultaneously and try to offer the farmers some advice, what kind of crops that can be planted according to the seasons, right? But we don't have much issue in Malaysia because we are having a hot and humid climate throughout the year. So this kind of businesses might be spurs up in coming years. And I think that's a very important point that Dr. Tan highlighted, is about the predictive maintenance, which is actually an essential part in how the businesses are seen today, right? For instance, automotive companies are now looking at those kind of predictive maintenance using IoT for having a remote diagnostics of their vehicles, and this could alert the service centers to to tell the customers that come on, this is time to service your cars, and probably to predict what kind of failure mechanism that the users could actually expect. So of course, looking at the businesses and particularly home automation, all right, the demand is there, but it's getting somehow, I would say, a gradual increase. rather than drastic. There could be a gradual increase between when we see more and more home developers try to introduce the home automation package into their buildings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tina. What do you think, Dr. Tan?
Thank you very much for the very interesting sharing by Dr. Tina Garan. Yeah, I think IoT can, of course, IoT will transform, how business is being done, and it's already been changing or transforming the businesses. For example, in factory, you can see that IoT can be used to track, has been extensively used to, of course, for preventive maintenance and also to track the asset and also inventory. Okay, so this has been widely used in the factory or industry. And then also IoT is being used by the consumer market, the retail market. For example, they can actually track which of the product is actually the most hot selling product, and at what particular time that there are most customer actually comes in, to actually visit the shop and so on. So all these can actually help the shop owner, or the shop operator to really improvise their businesses, because from there they know which of the product will be the most hot selling and what is the time that there will be more visitors. Okay, so based on this, they can manage their planning, and also they can improve their sales, based on all this data, right? So IoT is, I would say, is like a way for them to monitor help them to better monitor their business. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tan. Dr. Mastane, do you have anything to add?
Well, actually, the most important part has been mentioned by Dr. Tina and Dr. Tan, but I would like to highlight something totally different. The business that I would like to consider is education sector. So in education also, we can see the impact of the IoT itself, not only with the examples that I gave you before and using the direct IoT itself, but from the result of the IoT. Once we are using the IoT means that we are connecting everything in the world. So in the other side, we are going to have or obtain so many data information. Okay, so by mining these data, we are able to get lots of advantages. So the thing that I want to highlight here is in education center is that, or sector is that, let's say I give you example, most of the students do not like to sit for the exam. Either it is test or final exam or midterm or something. But why we do that? We always tell them that it is just going to be done just to get the performance of you, to know your performance and everything. But in reality, do we do it like this or not? So, however, there are so many things to be improved in the education sector, but I can say that using these data obtained from each and single question that we follow or we just provide to our students during the semester, and at the end of the day, at the end of semester, at the end of the year, and at the end of their completion of their engineering study in our case, they would be able to get the information about their performance in some specific points. For example, in our university, we are under the Washington Accord, so we have some specific fixed PLOs or program learning outcomes that the students have to follow up at the end of the day. So calculative information about all their marks in different questions, which are each one of these questions has been mapped to one CLO. Each CLO is mapped to one PLO or program learning outcome. At the end of the day, it will provide us the ability to give them the exact situation about their performance. Let's say I can tell you that in teamwork you are lagging in this part. For example, let's say you need to work more harder on your teamwork. Or for example, at the end of the day, at 1 year of study, 2 semester, 3 semester, you can find out that in, for example, in engineering part, you have some problem, or you are very good in analyzing. So based on that, you would find your future work as well. You can decide which job is more suits you as the student, and it will be much more productive, and it is going to have good impact again on the society. And as you know, we are now going to society 5.0, so it's better that we get the technology, effect, and we just contribute to our society as well at the end of the day. This is my point of view about that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mas. So once again, thanks a lot to the speakers for sharing. So I think the take-home message is that, well, in the industries, there is a mindset that we don't have to change anything. You know, we run the business just like 30 years ago, but it seems that it's not going to work in the future because let's imagine that one industry is using IoT to do the predictive and preventive maintenance, and you are not changing to that, so you may be at the losing side. So that's how I see it. And as the speakers also pointed out, there are more than one business lines that will emerge because of this IoT. It's not only about home automations. Various business lines will come up. For example, you may even transform the retail businesses, right? If you use IoT to help in your retail businesses, as compared to the one who doesn't apply IoT, then the later may be on the losing side. And even transforming the education, you know, close monitoring of the students' performance using the IoT system. So I think it's great. We are done. I think I asked too many questions to the speakers, so maybe you should take a break now. So I think there should be a 10 minutes break. All right. So now it's 10:28. I suppose, yeah, we can come back at 10:38 to continue on the forum, so that you can go wash up, take a breakfast. Your breakfast is more important than an IoT. Okay, is that okay with the organizer? We gather again at 10:38 to continue with the forum. Okay, great. So, all right, let's resume the forum at 10:38. So, see you guys later. Okay, welcome back, everyone. So let us resume our forum. So we have heard of the many applications of IoT, such as healthcare, IL 4.0, even educations, and so on. So now we want to delve a bit closer to the topic on healthcare. So what do you think about the applications of IoT in healthcare in more detail? May I ask this question to Dr. Tan?
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Fu. Okay, so for healthcare, so earlier I think we have some brief discussion about this usage of IoT in healthcare. Right, so I would like to talk more about this IoT application in healthcare. So firstly is if you consider a hospital, okay, we know that hospitals are usually consist of many buildings, and is sometimes quite difficult to navigate around, okay, the buildings to go to a specific room or a specific location in the hospital, okay. So it can be very difficult and time consuming. So with this location-based IoT, patient can navigate their way, okay, to their destination. Okay, for example, for their appointment, or to do a scan, okay, X-ray scan, and so on. Okay, so this can help the patient to save their time, okay, and also to go to the appointment. And another usage of IoT is for the queuing system, service queuing system. We know that a lot of time, especially if you go to the public hospital, and even now for the private hospital, takes a long time to wait there, right? So one of the usage is for the service queuing system, whereby you don't have to physically wait there. You can just take a number and then use, from your apps, from an app provided by the hospital or through their portal, internet portals, you can monitor what is the service number currently. Okay, so if it's still far from your number, from your queue number, so you can go elsewhere first, maybe go to the cafe, sit there, have a cup of coffee and so on. And then you just monitor, okay, what is the current number now? When it's almost reaching your number, then you just go there to wait for your turn, right? So again, this can actually be a convenient to the patient, to the hospital. And another thing is the doctors and medical staff in the hospital, because hospital is a huge and consists of many buildings. And in times of emergency, sometimes they cannot find each other, right? So using IoT, it can help to track the whereabouts of the doctors and medical staff in the hospital. So this can avoid delays in emergency. Okay, and also for hospital to detect, okay, for example, the beds, okay, whether the beds are occupied, okay, so for them to check whether there's currently any vacancy in the hospital for new patient to to be admitted, and they can also detect maybe some patient is trying to get up from their bed, is moving, or is trying to get up from a bed. So all this can be done or can be monitored using IoT, and of course IoT can also be used to remotely monitor the vital signs of the patient. Okay, so there's no need to keep on monitoring or looking at the patient by the bedside. So you can remotely monitor the patient. Okay, and we can also automate this process. But of course, because this involves human life, so a very strict standard should be applied. Okay, should be implied. Right. Okay. Now next is for remote health monitoring and also emergency notification. So IoT can also enable home hospitalization. Okay, so this will allow the patient and the doctor to keep track of their health, so they don't have to really make a very costly trip to visit the doctor at a very remote, from a remote area. So they can just allow the doctor to remotely monitor their health condition through the monitoring of these vital signs and so on. Okay, so this prevent unnecessary and costly trips to the hospital or clinics. And also, in case of any emergency, if we have this IoT-enabled wearable device, it can actually help to check the user vital signs and predict a risk. Okay, to know whether currently what happened to this wearer. Okay, this user who is wearing the wearable. What happened to his vital sign? So from his vital sign, if we are using an AI, okay, to work in tandem with this IoT, so we can predict, okay, what might happen to this patient. Okay, right. And also we can also use it to detect fall. Okay, fall detection, which is actually very critical for older people, elderly. Okay, because for youngsters, okay, and younger people, falling might be something normal, but for elderly people, it's very critical. So in case of any fall, okay, so this fall can be detected by the wearable device, and then can be sent to trigger an alert to the caretaker, so they can actually send help, okay, to actually help the elderly in case of any emergency. Okay, and another usage of IoT is for medical adherence system. So for medical adherence system, it's like a medicine reminder to remind us to take our medicine at a particular time. So this is very very important for those with chronic diseases, okay, and so on. Especially for elderly, because elderly sometimes do not have good memory to know when to take their medicine, right? So using these medical adherence systems, they can be reminded when to take their medicine. Okay, so then another usage of IoT in healthcare is in terms of this epidemic prevention. So I think now we have just shifted to endemic, right? So a lot of countries around the world is still having this pandemic situation now. Okay, so we know that IoT has been used during the pandemic time, mainly to to monitor the the people. Okay, for example, we can have a wearable device that can trigger alarm, okay, or a signal or vibration when the people are not really observing, or not following the SOP for social distancing, right? So whenever there's any social distancing that is violated, so this device can actually alert the wearer to know about this, okay? Because sometimes we just tends to forget about this, right? Okay, so it can be a reminder for keeping the social distancing. Okay, another thing is also for contact tracing, right? Contact tracing. So when you are wearing this device, it can know where are you going and so on. Okay, and also for entering and leaving time, so can be recorded using this wearable. Of course, now in Malaysia, we are typically using MySejahtera to do that, but in some countries, they are actually using a wearable devices to actually track the whereabouts of the people, okay, for contact tracing purposes. Okay, So you can see that IoT indeed can really be used in many applications in healthcare, many areas in healthcare. And in many cases, it actually helped to save life as well. All right, so yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tan. I think we'll just go straight to the next question, which is on the security. So previously I've heard Dr. Mastane to talk about the security concerns in the IoT system. Dr. Mas, would you like to elaborate further on the security concerns in the IoT systems?
Well, actually, I think that we talked in depth about it, but if you don't mind, I just want to share two other points. Only we can consider it as the maybe solution, which is in order to increase the actually the privacy or increase the security in different sectors. Because we know that all the IoT is just based on the connectivity around the world. So one way maybe to increase this security, in my point of view, maybe it is to share the responsibility between many more sectors. For example, if we have different stakeholders that they are using one hub or platform in order to do their IoT based business or whatsoever, we can share all the responsibility among all of them. In this way, not everyone is just taking care about himself or his own business and would blame others at the end of the day. But once the responsibility is shared among all, so everybody is trying his best to take care of the whole process. So at the end of the day, some unity will happen between them and the security may increase. This is one way. And the other one, which is definitely so important, is due to the standards and regulation. I have no doubt that everybody's just either in the academic part, in the ITU, MCMC, Malaysia, and everywhere actually, they are doing their best in order to provide the best standards and regulation. So these standards and regulations are going to protect us in a wider scale, in a sense that in case I do some mistake, I would get some penalties. Okay, if I do not follow whatever the standard is, then I would get penalty. So for that reason, also, I would care more as a designer, as a company that I'm offering some service. So following these standards and implementing the standards in each country, as I see here in MCMC, we have a very good, platform here, and they are just caring about everything very precisely. So it would be a great opportunity. It will maybe increase the the security and the privacy, and they can protect our privacy, because once we are connected to any devices, let's say, even very simple thing that I want to tell you is that let's say the smart refrigerator that we use. Okay, even once I buy the device which is already good designed, it is not poor secured, but maybe it is located in a wrong place. In that example I can give you, for example, let's say we have the CCTV, it has a good brand. We have the refrigerator, smart refrigerator is a good brand, so it is well designed, but we put it in the wrong place. We put it in a place that we don't have any physical control on that. Let's say we put it in a public area, so lots of hackers can attack that. If it is, let's say, connected to any Wi-Fi password, it can be hacked, and just all these attacks may happen. So another thing that we can consider is the place that we are using the the devices that we have. Not only the design itself, but where we are using is a matter in my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mas. Dr. Tina, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think what's shared by Dr. Mas, there could be some compliance issues, right? When you talk about implementing IoT devices or ecosystems. But I think this is along the way that, like, when many companies or organizations will start to embrace standards and guidelines before they want to introduce to the market. And I think it's a very common process, but it will take some time to see the acceptance in terms of security and privacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tina. Dr. Tan?
Yes, so I agree that security is actually a very important aspect, not only for IoT, but generally, okay, for a lot of application. Especially in IoT, of course, security is very important. Is because we are exposed, you are connected to the internet, so you are actually exposed to the internet. So a lot of time, IoT devices have been targeted by the hacker. Yeah, because of the simplicity of the IoT devices and also the limited computational power of the IoT devices. So it can be considered as the weakest link in the whole system. So we all know that security is only as strong as the weakest link in your system. So they always target these IoT devices because it's the simplest one and it's the weakest one. Okay, and I think a lot of company, they are already working on this, and security has been imposed in many of the newer IoT system as well as devices. For example, now a lot of these newer microcontroller, okay, for example, like ARM, okay, ARM microcontroller, they have already include a special functional unit in their controller, okay, or in their processor, just to tackle this security. Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tan and other speakers. So I think the take-home message is that, well, there's a concept of distributed risk management. If you share out the risk to all these devices, that could make things safer, and also a kind of a protection mechanism that can be provided from standardizations. Like if you are not compliant, then you get penalized, right? So that also provides some form of security. And also Dr. Mas mentioned about there is a form of a locational risk, like this device is very secure, but unfortunately deployed at the wrong place, right? So it may have to do with the space or the location where the devices are deployed. And finally, Dr. Tan mentions that nowadays, more and more these IoT devices are now installed with some form of security mechanisms, right? So I remember just now I asked Dr. Tina on how does the IoT transform businesses in the future. So now I'm going to ask Dr. Tina a similar questions, but it's on the automation and its effects on the job markets and economy. So it's a bit tricky questions because automation can mean, industrial automation, home automation, and what are the effects or the impact on our job market and the economy? Dr. Tina?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I do agree, it's a tricky and a very important question as well. Because there's been always a constant debate saying that the automation will take over our lives, the automation will replace the job market and so on. The automation will be accelerating the economics and so on. So there's been a mixed response all the time. So generally, like when students learn 4 years of engineering courses in the universities, or probably a 3 years program of computer science, and they might face some dilemma. They might be thinking that right after the graduations that they might not have an equal job to the what have they gathered throughout the university days, right? So this is like a very generalized notion. But what we see is that, of course, at some extent, automation will actually accelerate the economy, and we will see that many companies will actually embrace automation. This is like transforming the legacy systems to digitalizations. For example, you might have like a basic control panels that could be a digital dashboard soon, right? So for example, like in manufacturing, okay, you might have like dashboards, okay, conveyors belt, okay, that actually takes care of the production lines, okay, automate some machineries or some devices, right? So imagine that when there is IoT systems or even robots that actually does the job instead of human. So what happens there is that the routine task might be taken over by the respective IoT devices and the robots. So the question here now, what happens to the job market, right? What happens to the students, right? What happens to the job market? Are they going to be impacted, right? To answer the questions, I would say that there would be very less and minimal impact. This is because when automation takes place in the IoT ecosystems, there are more new jobs being created. So instead of operating those conveyors belt, instead of operating the devices or machineries, the new job scope will be like creating a modules, creating a software stack, or probably re-engineering the entire systems for which will go into the developer mode. So I would see that the job scope actually changes. The job remains, but the scope changes. So instead of being in operational phase, we will see that more jobs regarding automation will be more on the development side. So you might see that our students might be developing new selfless driving tractors, for example. Probably our students might be developing predictive maintenance software for the industry, or probably like coming up a new complete software framework to automate a plant. So this is where the job fits in, right? So it's not impacting the job trend, but it will be creating a more new jobs that will be more based on the skill sets. So the transition will be smooth somehow, right? So unlike many debates that says that there could be robots replacing your career and so on. Yes, it replaced, but in a different way, right? So we will still somehow survive this industrial transitions, and it's up to the students to develop new skills, especially pertaining to the IoT and automations. And right now we see that many certifications like Amazon Web Services, even Microsoft Azure, right? Probably picking up some skills on Google TensorFlow, right? And combined with your programming skills in open source hardwares like Raspberry Pi and Arduino, that could actually spurs up the skill sets for the students and even startups. So this is where I see that the automations will do a major transition, major leaps, but still it will spur up the economy. So I think it's high time, and we need to see the transformation. I think that the current batch students, right after the post pandemic, I mean, we are entering the endemic phase. This is where we will see a major transition leap into the economic. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tina. Dr. Tan, have anything to add?
Yes. So thank you very much, Dr. Fu. Okay, so I agree that yeah, what Dr. Tina Karan has shared, especially this automation is going to affect our job market. There will be job displacement. This is the main challenge that we are going to face. Okay, especially currently we are having this industrial revolution 4.0, and also AI, okay, with the AI. So AI is actually very good in doing very routine tasks, right? So a lot of these routine tasks, routine jobs has been replaced by AI. So I think instead of being replaced and waiting to be replaced by this AI, like what Dr. Tina Karan has said, is that it's very good for us to upskill and reskill ourselves, okay, prepare for this this revolution, okay. Instead of waiting to be replaced by IoT and AI. Okay, so for example, it's very good for us to learn about IoT. I think a lot of these IoT developments are quite commonly available now. Okay, development tools as well as in terms of hardware and software. Okay, so there shouldn't be any issue for you to pick up this skill. And in terms of AI, okay, AI is also a very valuable skill now. With the democratization of AI, okay, so you can see that a lot of these AI development software tools are actually free. Okay, so you can just download them, install on your machine, and even for the platform, okay, to train the models and so on, you can actually get free platform, okay, online. For example, Google Colabs, okay, so the Google allow you to use your hardware to accelerate the training process of your deep learning models. Okay, so I think it's a very good skill for that students nowadays should actually learn. Okay, to prepare for the future job market. All right, not only future, now it's already happening now. Okay, and another thing is learning about Python. Okay, I'm sure most of you heard about Python. Okay, so Python is also a very valuable skill, okay, programming skill that you should pick up, because you can use Python from device, because there is a variance of this Python called MicroPython, and also there's another called CircuitPython that can actually be used to program the microcontroller. Okay, microcontroller. So you can use Python all the way from microcontroller up to the data analytics, machine learning models, deep learning models, building and validation and evaluation. Okay, so that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tan and Dr. Tina. I'm afraid that again we are behind the schedule, so I'm going to go directly to the next question. But before that, the take-home message will be: there's always a question of whether automation will replace the labor, and according to the speakers, no, actually the jobs will remain, but the scope will change. Right? For example, the new job scope, like you may need to develop software stack for the devices and some form of protective mechanism in these devices. You have to design and come up with it. So we believe that the automation will actually accelerate the transformations of businesses and eventually the economy. All right, we move towards the E-based economy rather than the traditional economy. So our next questions will be: how can we as consumers expect the IoT to improve in terms of capabilities in the future? I would like to direct these questions to Dr. Tan.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fu. I think this is a very interesting question, talking about the future. Okay, future for IoT, right? So firstly is so far when we talk about IoT, we always relate it to AI, right? The reason is because IoT is mainly used to collect the data. Okay, so it can collect massive amount of data through IoT. Okay, and of course through IoT also we can send control signal to the devices, to the actuators to perform some operation. Okay, but the brain, okay, the brain behind these systems is usually the artificial intelligence, AI. So it's already happening now. So what currently happen now is a lot of these IoT devices, because of the simplicity of the hardware and also the controller processor used in the IoT devices, they have limited capability, right? So all these processing of the data, analyzing of the data are done on the cloud. So the data will be collected and then sent through the communication network to the cloud computing platform to do the analysis, to do the modeling, to make the decision. Okay, so currently there are already some of these being done on the so-called edge computing platform, or fog computing platform, whereby the processing is now being done locally instead of being pushed to the cloud computing platform. Okay, so when this AI is actually implemented on this, on the local side through this edge computing and also fog computing, we call this as artificial intelligence of things, right? AIoT. AIoT already happening now, but mainly the processing part is being done by the more powerful edge computing devices. Okay, that can be a gateway. They also usually act as a gateway as well. But in the future, what might happen is this can be done on the IoT device itself with the increased computation capability of the IoT device. I'm referring to the processor and the controller in the IoT device. Okay, so currently there are already a lot of these application using this called tiny ML, tiny machine learning. Okay, which is actually a type of embedded machine learning, whereby the machine learning can be done on the device itself instead of in the gateway. Okay, so in the future, I believe that the processing and the decision making can be done locally in the device itself instead of being done on the edge computing device or even pushed to the cloud. So these I have some benefit. Firstly, is that it's faster response time, and also reduce the reliance on the communication network. You know that when communication network break down, you have IoT, but when the communication break down, you cannot do anything, right? Because the data cannot be sent to the internet and so on. So everything is break down. But with this AIoT and the data can be analyzed, processed, and decision can be made locally, we don't have to really depend on this communication network too much. Okay, so it can be done locally. Right, this also can also help in privacy, because we don't have to send our data to a remote cloud. Okay, so we don't have to worry about privacy. Secondly, in terms of the communication network, okay, so we know that 5G is coming, right? So with this advent of 5G technologies, we see that we can have decreased latency, we can have increased throughput, and also enhanced capability, right? Because of the improved spectrum efficiency. So with 5G, with the reduced latency, data can be sent faster, and with the increased throughput, we can send more data as well. Okay, so this can actually open up a lot more application. For example, like remote surgery can be done. Okay, and you can even have like 360-degree camera, okay, installed on your robots and so on. And it will definitely accelerate the development of smart city as well. Okay, next, of course, is on the security. So we have been talking about security as well. We know blockchain, okay, blockchain is a proven technology for security, right? So in the future, there'll be more widespread use of blockchain as an infrastructure to strengthen this IoT security. Okay. So another thing that may happen is a lot of these IoT devices, there are two kinds of IoT devices. One is you just buy it and then you just use it. Okay, I'm referring to home automation, buy it and use it. Another type is you may buy it and then you can customize it, right? Currently, this kind of device that you can customize involves some programming, right? Maybe you need to reprogram the device, using Arduino-based, Arduino-based language, or you can reprogram the device using Python and so on. So it's still limited to those who are more technically savvy consumer. Okay, so it's not really approachable for most or majority of the consumer. But in the near future, most likely, these kind of devices will be more customizable by the end user through the no-code or low-code approaches. Okay, meaning that they don't have to write the codes. They just need to use an interface, using block programming. There are certain blocks that they can actually connect, okay, and they can customize the function of these devices through these approaches, low-code or no-code approaches. Okay, so these are some of the improved capability of IoT in the future. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tan. I think it's better that we move on to the last question, because I see that in the chat box there are a lot of questions waiting to be answered by the speakers, so I don't want to take up too much of the time. I will especially reserve the last question to Dr. Mastani, because unfortunately she has been kept quiet for quite some time. So I'm going to ask about the standardization. All right. So just now, Dr. Tina also mentioned about the importance of the standardizations and protocols. So we understand that usually in any kind of systems, machines, appliances, usually they have some protocols to follow, some standards to certify that they are safe to be used, for example. So are they applicable to IoT? And maybe Dr. Mastani could share with us a few examples of this, Dr. Mas?
Yes, sure. Actually, thank you for your question. It is quite a great question. Actually, in fact, as you mentioned, that is 100% right. For every kind of technology devices or anything that we introduce, we have some standards behind it. These standards mostly take place within the last 10 years. that we call it as the one generation in our communication. That's why if you remember from first generation till now that we have 5G, and now we are working for the next 6G, so we are working on all those standards. The same thing happens for our IoT as well, but I can say that it is quite interesting to know that due to the nature of the IoT, that we may have different situation in which we are going to use different devices, we may have different protocols for each one of them. For example, we have the device-to-device communication, we have the device-to-gateway communication, we have the device-to-cloud. So for each one of these, we can address one of these sort of standards based on how they are going to make this connection. For example, if you are using the Bluetooth, the main protocols that we use for this IoT is the Bluetooth, is Wi-Fi, DDS, or Zigbee. All those kind of things depends on the nature that we are going to use. We can have different protocols. But the most important thing, as I think, is that the layers of the IoT communication, I can say, is that what are the the layers that we consider for one IoT system to be proposed. Actually, the first thing that we can say is that we actually categorize these layers up to 7 layers, if I'm not mistaken. I saw some general views of up to 4 layers actually, but in fact, if we want to go very in details, we can go up to the 7 layers, starting from the physical layer. The second layer, we talk about the connectivity, then the edge computing, then data storage itself, and data absorption, like how we access to the internet or so, or like this, and then the application. The application also, it is very important parts because it brings us to the point that we can do the analytical situation, we can go for the control, monitoring, all those kind of concerns can come up at this point. Rather than that, it is more about the collaboration and how we are going to use the security wise at this level, like involving in business, involving people, involving different sectors in order to categorize this. So in fact, what is happening is that all these concerns would be gathered together, the information would be considered, and the way we are going to make this communication happen, and actually we provide some standards, actually not we, actually the IEEE and ITU. The first one standard that was very basic one mentioned in 2012, if I'm not mistaken, through the ITUT recommendations. If I'm not mistaken, it was Y2060, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So you can find the basic thing which was mentioned in 2012 about the IoT. The basic and the most, very straight line was the definition of IoT. So even in our standards, we do care about the definition. Based on that, we can avoid any interference. So for any technology that we are going to introduce within the next 10 years, we are going to talk about all the possible interference from our existing technology to the from our existing technology to the one that the new proposed one, or vice versa, from the new one to the whatever we have. So I personally believe, rather than all these standards that we are working on today, or it is already mentioned up to today, that you can have access through ITU for free, you can access to those. There is another concern which is related to the infrastructure. Whatever we are talking about up to today is the normal internet that we have. So as you know, the accessibility of the internet may be different from one country to another due to infrastructures, but having the project of Elon Musk to provide the internet for all people around the world, so without any sort of disruption or any sort of disconnection, it may change even the standards that we have today. So I'm not so quite sure how it will look like later on, but maybe we will get more secure actually, and the privacy would be protected much more, or the access would be such easy for everyone in the world, hopefully, that there would be no issue anymore, especially in the security line. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mastane. So certainly there are various types of standards protocols, protocols that are implemented for device-to-device communication or even device-to-gateway communications. So these are the communications protocols. The examples are Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and so on. But not only that, there may be security protocols that you may need to follow, and even how to avoid the IoT devices from interfering with each other. Right? We also need some form of protocols or the standards there. So I think this should be the take-home message based on what Dr. Mas has shared with us. I'm sorry that just now I got overexcited that I forgot to summarize on what Dr. Tan talked about. How does the IoT and have the capabilities to be enhanced? So I think Dr. Tan mentioned about three important things: AI, 5G, and blockchain. Right? All these three important areas, the AI, 5G, and the blockchain, can enhance the IoT capabilities. For example, blockchain could be a very secure measure to ensure to protect the security of the IoT networks. And also AI, we are moving from cloud computing to edge computing, and 5G, you can greatly reduce the latency. So from this small topic of IoT, we have actually started to touch other big topics such as 5G, AI, and blockchain. So yeah, thank you very much to the speakers for their selfless sharing. So before I pass back to the organizers to deal with the many questions asked by the participants, I just want to make a short summary on what the three speakers have shared with us today. They have shared with us a lot of examples, problems, starting from home automation to industrial automations, remote education, remote healthcare, tracking assets, or even human beings. So, and also we take note of the concerns of the errors and security, right? Then there should be some form of a protective and corrective mechanisms to be implemented in the IoT network. And we know that the standardization is important, right? We need to, or rather the devices, they have to follow certain protocols in order to ensure their compliances. And we agree that this IoT technology can transform and disrupt the traditional businesses. New business lines will emerge. For example, the Grab food, all right? You just need to grab and the food will come. Okay, so we are not too much worries about the automations brought out by IoT will replace the job market, but rather we see that the traditional job scopes are now replaced with a new one. For example, we need engineers to design the protocol stacks and to install this security mechanism in these IoT devices. And the changes in the job market certainly will impact the economy. And finally, as the speakers have pointed out, well, this IoT technology doesn't go alone. It goes together with the technology, the development in AI, 5G, and the blockchain. All right. So I think that's all I can summarize from this forum. I will pass back to the organizers to let them to handle the questions asked by the participants. Over to you, organizer.
All right. Okay, thank you to the speakers. That was such a wonderful and insightful session. All right, so we have several questions here. So I will open the floor to any speaker who wanted to answer this. All right, so the first one is, if we have a more advanced IoT infrastructure earlier, how much would it reduce COVID-19? I open the floor to any first. Am I clear? Hello?
Your voice is breaking up, so I can't hear the
Hello?
question clearly.
Just your voice is breaking.
Okay, can you hear me right now? Can you hear me right now? Sorry.
I can hear you, but sometimes
Yes.
it's like
It's breaking, yes. Yeah.
challenge. Yes.
The question is in the chat
I
box.
can see it.
Okay.
If my voice is unclear, the question is in the text box. Okay, all right. So I open the floor to any one of the speakers who would like to answer.
Well, I would like to answer this question in this way. However, we didn't have infrastructure, but in Malaysia, I can say we did one of the best things if you can see in the world. It was so great. Everything just moved very fast, considering the that we were not even ready for this to happen, and we were not having all these infrastructure. Like if this happened in US and like Japan, that their infrastructure is much higher advanced than here. Maybe they could, if they use this power over there, so maybe they can control everything much more better. So in our case, I believe that we did a good job here in Malaysia. But if I want to answer to this question, I can say that you can see the difference between today and the first day that the pandemic started. You can see how much is the difference right now. The death rate is reduced, not only because of the vaccine, that I do believe it is very important issue, but even to promote or to provide the vaccine to others. Nowadays, we can use the drone ambulance. So we can simply send even the vaccine to the places that may not have the access to the good hospitals or anything. So we can send everything over there. They can actually trace all the patients wherever they are. We just isolate others. So you see the impact. Besides, in parallel with the vaccine, that there's no doubt on it, but with the technology itself, so you can see the impact. So if we have it today and tomorrow some new variant happens, so I believe that the impact can be so clearly observed in this way. So maybe not by percentage I can tell you, but the result can be obviously observed right now today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mas. Would you like to add anything, Dr. Tan or Dr. Tina?
Yeah, maybe I fully agree with Dr. Mas. So I think Malaysia has done a good job in this, even compared to some other more advanced country like US or more developed country like US and also Japan or Korea. Okay, no doubt IoT can help in this, but a lot of time is also depending on a lot of other factors. Okay, and I think from this year onwards, we can see that. I mean, recently, you can see that it has been improving. Okay, it has been improving, right? But again, not only the technology can help in this, but also another very important factor is, of course, the government role in this, and also the public, okay, the public support in the government, government effort in fighting the pandemic. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tan. All right, so we'll move on to the second question. So, in your opinion, what is the difference between IoT and digitization, especially in terms of application? Also, what is the difference between IoT and cyber physical system? As panelists keep repeating IoT and AI, IoT and robotics. So what are the difference between IoT and cyber physical systems?
Okay, maybe I can answer the question. Right. Okay, the first question regarding the difference in terms of applications between IoT and digitization. So IoT is more like an enabler, right? It provides the device, it provides sensors, actuators, the connectivity, right? The way you push the data. So that's IoT. While digitization is about you transform, okay, meaning that from the manual way you see things, the manual way you deal with the data, and when you digitize, you could do some manipulations over it. So what is happening here is that IoT is actually accelerating the digitizations. This is how we see, right? And the difference between IoT and cyber physical system, okay, that's very interesting question. Cyber physical system is actually a collective ecosystems that actually consists of IoT, AI, robotics, and many other pillars of Industrial Revolutions 4.0. So we know that the IR 4.0, the Industrial Revolution 4.0, is actually based on cyber physical systems. So when you see things beyond that, beyond IoT, it's all about multidisciplinary approach that you need to deal together with IoT. So when you have IoT together with AI and robotics, you don't call them IoT anymore, you call them as cyber physical systems. So CPS is not a new field. It's been there since 2006, and it's slowly catching up, and we could see some new CPS innovations in coming years. But the way we collectively says that when you combine IoT with another pillar technology, that's how cyber physical system comes into the picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tina, for that explanation. All right, on. Do we have any additional comments from Dr. Tan or Dr. Mas? Would you like to add? No? All right, so we'll move on to the next question, yeah? Right. So how do we limit the damage to our work culture and practices caused by IoT and Industry 4.0? So just like the adoption of just-in-time management, we have become over-reliant on our technology to the point of any disruption causes major problems, unlike in previous eras where we are not too dependent on these technologies. So I'll open the floor to any one of the speakers.
Well, may I answer this question in this way because if I'm not mistaken, previously our speakers already impact of the IoT and the fact that it is not going to 100% take over our jobs. The fact is that all the businesses, whatever is happening in our society is just based on our demand. There should be a change, definitely. Maybe the shape of the work will change, but it doesn't mean that we are going to lose something or we are 100% depending on the technology, because even being dependent on the technology, we still need some expert people, human, to just develop everything for you. So we still need some programmers, we still need some experts, we still need some educators, we still need some people to teach others how to do. There are some things that cannot be replaced by the robot, like once you go to the society, once you need to have some, once you reach to the emotion sides. So not only the technology, but there is some humanity involved, but the shape would be different. Yes, previously, once we want, not us actually, many years back, once people wanted to trade, they had no money to trade, so they just changed the stuff with the stuff. But today we are just using the money. However, in very near future, I believe that using the cryptocurrency, we are not going even to use the money. So the shape is only changing, but it doesn't mean that we do not need. So having the demand for everything, I think there will be no problem in our culture, and no worries at the end of the day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mas. So yeah, I honestly believe that in terms of moving to so we do not only solely be reliant on the technology itself. All right. Okay, next is, as noted by Dr. Tan, there is a large pool of application for IoT with great benefits, including saving lives. So since the application and requirements are specific, fabrication can be expensive. Are there any efforts that can be made to customize IoT system but at a lower cost?
Okay, I think I should answer this question because it's referring to what I have shared earlier. I think this is a very interesting question. Okay, one way, of course, to drive down the cost of manufacturing is to increase the production size. I mean, increase the market size, right? So, of course, one of the way to make this more approachable is like what I've shared regarding the future of IoT, that is making it more user-friendly and more end-user approachable. Okay, so if let's say you can make IoT easier to be deployed, easier to be used, easier to be customized, then the market will actually be larger. Okay, so by having a larger market, this will actually drive down the cost. Right. So of course, one of the things that we can do is, for example, like what I shared earlier, is to use this low code or no code approach to allow the end user to customize their IoT devices. So instead of reprogramming using like using C or C++ or Python, now they can just use something like a block-based approach to reprogram or reconfigure the IoT devices. Yeah. So with this more approachable way, I'm sure that the market will be larger as well. Okay, so this is one of the way to drive down the cost. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Tan. All right, so this will be the last question. This refers to Dr. Mas's point, which is the shared responsibility in terms of security. So are there any ways or example to implement the collective responsibility for IoT?
Yes, if I want to give you very basic example, let's say you want to buy a laptop also, okay? If you just do the research in depth, you will hear about the term DevSecOps, correct? Or DevOps, in short, DevOps, or very general one is DevSecOps, which is the software developer, IoT operator, and the security. So this is what I meant by the sharing responsibility among them. So let's say I want to build this laptop, or I just want to purchase one laptop. If I bring these three sectors, because we have at least these three experts, so each of them is responsible for that. So if tomorrow anything happens, all of them would be blamed for what something is happening wrong, then they will care much more, rather than somebody say, okay, so this part is just a software problem, so I do not care about the rest of the problems happen, or the security is okay, but let's say the IT operation is concerned. So that was my suggestion, like we consider these terms, or at least the DevOps in a very early stage, so it will cause us more, to have more responsible people in one sector, so it will add to the higher the security. This is what I think. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mas. Yes, I do agree that we should have a shared responsibility or a collective responsibility, so that all responsible parties should take part and should try to rectify it, whether if there's any problem or any errors in the security, because it is called a system. So it's not a standalone. It consists of different parts and different appliances, different apparatus, and also different communication devices. So I also agree that it should be a shared responsibility. Okay, so that's all for the question session. And that was such a wonderful and insightful session. Thank you to our amazing panels for the moments, and sadly, good moments don't last. So time is no longer on our side, as we are at the end of the forum. So dear speakers, do you have any advices you would like to share to the participants today? Because as you all know that most of us are an academia or an academician. So what would you like to give some advice to the students or to other participants? I will start with Dr. Mastani.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Actually, I would like to suggest two things. First of all, it's my wish that we see more ladies in the engineering side. I really wish that lots of you just participate. This is the first, which is the wish only. And then the second thing is that, and I actually wanted to encourage them honestly. And the second thing is that always try to find the problems in the life. You can find lots of things to be solved. So there are some aspects of your life, your daily life, that you feel that if I had a chance, I will do something. Try to find a solution based on your background, and definitely with the help of this internet, IoT, AI, data mining, all these, I promise that you can solve so many problems in your own daily life. So once you do this, you can extend it for the society itself. Good luck to all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mas. All right, we'll move on to Dr. Tan.
Okay, thank you. So what I would like to share is just we know that one of the main challenge of this IoT, okay, together with AI and robotics and so on, is job displacement. Okay, so we know that with this IoT, AI, and robotics, the machine can now work around the clock to perform routine tasks with superhuman accuracy. Okay, so a lot of these routine jobs will be replaced. So instead of being waiting to be replaced by the machine, we should upskill and reskill ourselves through lifelong learning to equip ourselves with the knowledge and skill set required to transform these challenges brought by IoT, AI, and robotics into opportunities. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Tan. Last but not least, our Dr. Tina.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Rule. Okay, I think just a few things like to the students. Probably you can just pick up some skill sets, right? If you're interested in IoT, just go for it. If you're interested in AI, just go for it, because we live in an era where we are doing a collaborative effort. So we cannot be like expert of everything, but probably we can contribute our part based on the mutual projects. And in terms of IoT, I would like to see that more students coming up with some out-of-the-box ideas, right? Instead of just doing a smart home, smart city, probably you can do something something that very close to the society. Like, for example, solving water issues, or probably solving like water quality, or probably something like flood monitoring, something that very close to the social context. So let's move on and wish you all the best. Thank you.
I see. Thank you, Dr. Tina. I would like to add a little bit, which is I'm actually very interested in the farming using IoT, because right now we have several issues in terms of export and import. So for instance, India has stopped their wheat import. So it's very tough for us in Malaysia in terms of bread production, and also like we have many of traditional kuehs using the flours. So I think that we'll see an increase in the price of the pastries and also bakeries soon. So yeah, I think that is one factors that we should take note on. All right. So thank you for the insightful advices and perspectives. So before we wrap this up, let's have a photo shoot. I would appreciate the cooperation from everyone, especially the participants, to turn on your webcam. We'll have a photo shoot session, all right? I'll give you guys 10 minutes to get ready. Okay. Zohrul, will you assist me in taking the picture?
Yeah, sure, no problem. I'll check it. Hi, Doctor. Can I switch off the fan?
Please switch on your cameras and be on standby as there are 129 people. So there will be a few times where we'll take the picture, so we're not sure which slide you guys are gonna be in. So just bear with me and just be on standby, all right? Give us your best faces and your best smiles. Thank you.
All right, so I'll be taking the photo now. So I'll be counting from 3 to 1. Please keep smiling. We have 3 pages. All right, 3, 2, 1. We're currently the second page. All right, I've already captured all the beautiful smile. So what to you, MC?
All right, thank you, Zaharul. Okay, so the forum is finally coming to an end. I would like to conclude that in the coming inevitable future of IoT, history has shown that those who are unable to ride the wave will be swept by the current. So to be able to fully embrace this kind of future, one has to be fully prepared of its potential, impact, and other related concerns. So I am Nurul Nabila, signing off as your MC today. Thank you to the speakers and the participants for contributing in this forum. Have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Bye.
there is an attendance form in the chat box for the participants. So make sure you guys click on the link and record your attendance, all right? Okay, thank you.